The extraction rig exploded at exactly 0347 hours, turning the Arctic night into day for 3 terrible seconds before plunging back into darkness. Captain Maya Chen felt the shockwave through the ice beneath her boots, even from 2 kilometers away, and she knew immediately that this wasn't an accident. Someone had just declared war. Command, this is Frost 1. Confirm visual on the Prometheus facility. It's gone. Her breath crystallized in the 40 below air as she spoke into her comm. Behind her visor, her dark eyes tracked the orange glow now staining the horizon. Copy that, Frost 1. The voice of General Harrison crackled through with unusual tension. Intel suggests the Kozlov syndicate. They're making their move. You're authorized to intercept and neutralize. Maya turned to her team, 5 of the most specialized operators the Joint Task Force could assemble. Her gaze lingered perhaps a fraction too long on Lieutenant Jack Morrison, whose ice-blue eyes met hers with that same unreadable intensity that had been building between them for months. They'd worked together on 3 continents, always professional, always controlled. But out here in this frozen wasteland at the edge of the world, control felt like a luxury they might not be able to afford much longer. "Gear up," she ordered. "We move in 10. The Arctic had changed everything. When the ice caps began their accelerated retreat 5 years ago, the world's powers had watched with a mixture of horror and greed. Horror at what it meant for the planet. Greed at what lay beneath. Vast reserves of rare earth minerals, untapped oil fields, natural gas deposits worth trillions. The new Cold War wasn't ideological, it was geological. And into that power vacuum had stepped organizations like the Kozlov Syndicate. Criminal enterprises with the resources of nations and none of the accountability. They didn't want to control the resources for any government. They wanted to monopolize them, create artificial scarcity, and watch the world's powers tear each other apart, bidding for scraps. Maya's team moved across the ice like shadows, their white tactical gear rendering them nearly invisible against the snow. The terrain shifted constantly, ice shelves carving without warning. Leads of open water appearing where solid ground had been hours before. The Arctic wasn't just a battlefield, it was an opponent in itself. Jack moved up beside her, his presence somehow both comforting and unsettling. 3 years I've been working this beat, he said quietly, his voice meant only for her comm. Never seen them this bold. Hitting a NATO facility directly? They're escalating. Maya's gloved hand adjusted her weapon's thermal scope. Kozlov knows the ice is melting faster than anyone predicted. It's now or never for him. And us? She glanced at him, caught the way his jaw tightened with determination under his balaclava. We stop him, whatever it takes. They'd met during a joint training exercise in Alaska. Maya, the rising star of the U.S. Special Operations Command. Jack, the British SAS operative with a reputation for impossible extractions. The attraction had been immediate and mutual, and they'd both been disciplined enough to ignore it. Mostly. The Prometheus facility was still burning when they reached the perimeter. Bodies in the snow, security personnel who'd never had a chance. Maya felt the familiar cold anger settling over her, the kind that made her dangerous in the field. "Tracks," called out Yuki Tanaka, their Japanese tracker and explosives expert. "Heavy vehicles, heading northeast toward the Lomonosov Ridge. That's where the surveys indicated the largest deposits," added Dr. Sarah Kim, their Korean-American geologist and only civilian on the team. "If Kozlov controls that territory, he controls everything," Maya finished. "All right, we pursue. But stay sharp. This ice is unstable, and Kozlov's people know we're coming." They moved through the night, following the trail across a landscape that seemed designed to kill. Crevasses appeared like hungry mouths in the ice. The wind could strip exposed skin in seconds. The darkness was absolute, except for the aurora borealis painting the sky in sheets of green and violet. 2 hours into the pursuit, they found the first ambush site. "Contact front!" Jack's warning came a heartbeat before the ice exploded with gunfire. Maya's team scattered, using the broken terrain for cover. The muzzle flashes revealed positions, 6 hostiles, dug into reinforced positions on a pressure ridge. Professional, patient. "Yuki, can you flank?" Maya called out, returning fire with controlled bursts. "On it!" The smaller woman was already moving, using the darkness and her intimate knowledge of ice formations. Maya watched Jack advance using a technique they'd practiced together, covering each other's movements with an intuitive synchronization that went beyond training. They'd always worked well together, maybe too well. The firefight was brief and brutal. Yuki's charges collapsed the enemy position, and Marcus Webb, their Canadian sniper, picked off the survivors attempting to flee. But the victory cost them. Rodriguez, their demolition specialist, took a round through the shoulder. "I'm good," Rodriguez grunted as Sarah worked on him. "Just tape it." "You're not good," Sarah countered, but she worked quickly, her medical training as solid as her geological expertise. "But you'll live." Maya made the hard call. "Rodriguez, you're with Sarah. Set up a fallback position. The rest of us continue pursuit." She saw the protest in Rodriguez's eyes, but discipline won out. "Yes, ma'am." They pressed on, now down to 4 operators against an unknown number of hostiles in the most unforgiving environment on Earth. The aurora intensified as they traveled, until it felt like they were moving through a cathedral of light. In different circumstances, it would have been beautiful. Now it just made Maya think of all the climate models, all the warnings that had been ignored for too long. "Maya." Jack's voice was quiet on their private channel. "After this is over, don't." She cut him off, not unkindly. "Don't make plans. Not out here, it's bad luck." "Is that what we are? Bad luck?" She was silent for a moment, her breath clouding her visor. "We're professionals who know better. And if I don't want to know better anymore," before she could answer, Marcus spoke up. "I've got structures on thermal, 2 clicks northeast, big heat signatures, generators, vehicles, personnel." "That's it," Maya said, grateful for the interruption. "That's Kozlov's staging area." They approached the facility with extreme caution. It was larger than expected, a full forward operating base carved into the ice, protected by armed patrols and automated defenses. Through her scope, Maya counted at least 40 hostiles. "We need backup," Yuki whispered. "Backup is 8 hours away," Maya replied. "By then, Kozlov could have established enough of a presence to make this region a hot zone. Russia and China are already moving naval assets. One wrong move and this turns into World War III. So what do we do?" Maya studied the facility, her tactical mind processing angles and possibilities. "We do what we do best, the unexpected." Her plan was audacious to the point of recklessness. Using Yuki's expertise, they'd create a diversion on the southern perimeter, while Maya and Jack infiltrated from the north, targeting the facility's power generation. Without heat and electricity, Kozlov's people would have to evacuate or freeze. "Marcus, you're our guardian angel," Maya instructed. "Anyone comes after us, you make them regret it." The sniper nodded, already finding his hide site among the broken ice ridges. The approach was nerve-wracking. Maya and Jack low-crawled across open ice for 300 meters, trusting their white gear and the darkness. At any moment, a patrol could spot them. A sensor could pick up their heat signature. Jack's hand found hers briefly, squeezing through the insulated gloves. No words, just that connection. Then they were at the facility's edge, pressed against the prefabricated wall while Yuki's charges detonated on the far side. Shouts in Russian, the sound of running feet, the chaos they needed. Maya cut through the external power, coupling with quick, precise movements. Jack covered her, his weapon tracking potential threats. They worked in perfect synchronization, each anticipating the other's moves. Inside, the facility was surprisingly sophisticated, more than just a staging area. Labs, computer terminals, maps showing mineral deposits across the entire Arctic Circle. "He's not just trying to control one site," Jack breathed. "This is the coordination center for the entire operation, which means Kozlov might be here." Maya felt her pulse quicken. Taking out the head of the organization could end this. They moved deeper, the facility's emergency lights casting everything in red. Maya's instincts screamed warnings, but they pressed on. The operations center was 2 levels down, buried in the ice. Through a reinforced window they saw him, Viktor Kozlov, the ghost, the myth made flesh. Tall, grey-haired, surrounded by screens and subordinates. And beside him, a woman in an elegant coat that seemed absurdly out of place in the Arctic. Even from this distance, Maya could see the coldness in her eyes. "Natasha Volkov," Jack whispered. "Kozlov's second. Some say she's the real brains of the operation." They were outnumbered 10-1 in that room alone. A direct assault would be suicide. Maya keyed her comm. "Command, this is Frost One. We've located the primary targets, requesting authorization for terminal force." There was a pause, then General Harrison's voice. "Denied. We need them alive for intelligence. Extract data and evacuate." "Sir, we may not get another shot like this." "That's an order, Captain." Maya felt Jack's eyes on her. She'd always followed orders. It was what made her effective. But how many more people would die if Kozlov walked away from this? The decision was taken from her when the light suddenly came back on. "Trap," Jack said unnecessarily. Natasha Volkov smiled at them through the window, raising a phone to her ear. The ice beneath their feet trembled. "Charges," Maya realized. "The whole facility is—" The explosion threw them 20 feet. Maya's world became tumbling chaos, the roar of destruction, the sensation of falling. She hit hard, felt ice give way, and then frigid water closed over her head. The Arctic Ocean was a shock of cold that drove the air from her lungs. Her gear dragged her down. In the absolute darkness, she couldn't tell which way was up. Then hands grabbed her, hauling her toward the surface. Jack. It had to be Jack. They broke through into an air pocket, a small cavity in the ice created by the explosion, both gasping, treading water that would kill them in minutes. "Can't reach the others," Jack managed between breaths. "Comms. Dead." Maya forced herself to think through the cold and the fear. "There." She pointed to where a faint glow showed through the ice. "Emergency light. Maybe. Structural damage we can exploit." They swam through water so cold it burned, Maya's limbs already going numb. Just when she thought they wouldn't make it, Jack found a gap in the ice. They pulled themselves through, collapsing on solid ground, shaking violently. "Have to. Keep moving," Maya's teeth chattered. "Or we die." They staggered through the damaged facility, following emergency lighting. Bodies everywhere. Kozlov's people killed by his own failsafe. The monster had been willing to sacrifice his entire forward team. In what remained of the operations center, they found it. A server bank, somehow still powered by backup batteries. Maya's frozen fingers fumbled with her extraction drive, downloading everything while Jack stood guard. "Company," Jack warned. Natasha Volkov emerged from the shadows, alone now, her elegant coat torn and bloody, but the gun in her hand was steady. "Very impressive, Captain Chen," she said in perfect English, "but this changes nothing. We have 6 other facilities. This is merely a setback." "It's over," Maya replied, slowly standing. "We have your data. Every location, every corrupt official you've bought, every government you've compromised. Then I suppose I have nothing to lose." Natasha's finger tightened on the trigger. Jack moved faster than thought, tackling Maya aside as the shot rang out. They hit the ground hard, Maya rolling, coming up with her sidearm, firing twice. Natasha went down, surprise frozen on her face. "Jack!" Maya scrambled to him. "Jack!" "I'm okay." He grabbed her hand, pulled himself up. "Vest caught it, but we need to move. This whole structure is unstable." They ran through collapsing corridors, the facility tearing itself apart. Behind them, fire spread through the labs, destroying evidence, destroying everything. They emerged into the Arctic dawn to find Marcus and Yuki waiting, both alive, both exhausted. "Kozlov?" Yuki asked. Maya shook her head. "Gone. Either buried or evacuated. But we got the data. We can roll up his entire network." The extraction helicopters arrived with the sunrise, filling the sky with the thunder of rotors. As they lifted away from the broken ice, Maya watched the facility disappear beneath smoke and flame. In the helicopter's cramped interior, wrapped in emergency blankets, she finally let herself feel the exhaustion. Jack sat beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "You saved my life," she said quietly. "You've saved mine plenty of times." I mean it. Thank you. He turned to look at her, and in his eyes she saw everything they'd both been holding back. The attraction, the connection, the possibility of something beyond the mission. When we get back, he said, I'm putting in for a transfer. Her heart sank. Jack, to your unit, permanently, if you'll have me. That's against protocol. We can't what? Can't acknowledge that we work better together than apart? Can't admit that what we have is worth exploring? He reached out, his hand finding hers. I almost lost you today, Maya. I almost lost you. And all I could think was that I'd wasted all this time pretending I didn't feel what I feel. She should have pulled away, should have maintained professional distance. Instead, she laced her fingers through his. It'll be complicated, she warned. Everything worth doing is complicated. She laughed, surprising herself. Is that what passes for romance in the SAS? Is it working? Instead of answering, she leaned in and kissed him. It was brief, chaste by any standard, but it carried the weight of every moment they'd shared, every unspoken word, every heartbeat of fear that they might not survive. When they pulled apart, Yuki was studiously examining the ceiling, while Marcus wore a knowing grin. About damn time, the sniper muttered. The debriefing took 3 days. The data they'd recovered was even more valuable than hoped, a complete map of Kozlov's network spanning 17 countries. Within a week, coordinated raids had rolled up the entire organization. Kozlov himself was captured, trying to board a yacht in Cyprus. Maya watched the news coverage from her hospital bed, where they were treating her for hypothermia and exhaustion. The world had been pulled back from the brink, at least for now. Jack appeared in her doorway carrying coffee and wearing civilian clothes. Heard you were being released today. In an hour. She accepted the coffee gratefully. You? Clean bill. Apparently I'm too stubborn to suffer lasting damage. He sat on the edge of her bed. I got my transfer approved, and General Harrison signed off on us, officially. How did you manage that? I pointed out that special operations teams often develop close bonds, and that prohibition against relationships is really more of a guideline when it comes to field partners who've proven effective together. He grinned. Also, I may have mentioned that we saved the world from a potential global conflict. We had help. A little help. His hand found hers again, and this time there was no hesitation in her response. So what do you say, Captain? Think we can make this work? Maya thought about all the reasons it was a bad idea, all the complications it would create. Then she thought about standing on the ice watching the aurora, about the feeling of his hands pulling her from the freezing water, about the certainty that life was too short and too precious to waste on what-ifs. I think we already are making it work, she said. He leaned in to kiss her, properly this time, without helicopters or mission constraints or the specter of death looming over them. It was warm and real and full of promise. Outside, the world continued turning. The Arctic continued its transformation. The great powers continued their dance around resources and territory. But for this moment, in this hospital room, 2 people who'd faced the worst the world could offer found something worth more than all the rare earth minerals in the frozen north. 3 months later, Maya stood at a podium receiving a commendation for valor. Jack stood among the other recipients, and when their eyes met, his wink was barely perceptible. They'd found their balance, professional in the field, personal everywhere else. That night, in the apartment they'd just signed a lease on, Jack cooked dinner, while Maya reviewed briefings for their next assignment. Nothing as dramatic as the Arctic, thankfully, a training exercise in Norway. Think we'll ever top the exploding ice base and the megalomaniacal criminal? Jack asked, setting plates on their small table. Maya pulled him down for a kiss, savoring the ordinary miracle of having him here, safe, hers. I hope not. Once is enough for that particular adventure. What about other adventures? She raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? His smile was answer enough. Later, in the darkness of their bedroom, with the city lights filtering through the curtains, they explored the territory of each other with the same focus and determination they brought to missions. But this landscape was mapped with touches and sighs, with the discovery of what made each other gasp or laugh or whisper yes. They made love with the intensity of people who'd learned the fragility of life, the value of connection. Jack's hands traced the scars from a dozen operations, and Maya mapped the geography of his body with lips and fingers. They came together with heat and urgency, then again with slow, deliberate attention to every sensation. Afterward, tangled in sheets and each other, Maya felt a peace she'd never expected to find. Jack's hand drew lazy patterns on her bare back, and she pressed a kiss to his chest, right over his heart. "I love you," she said, surprising herself with the words. They'd been thinking it for months, but saying it felt like crossing a threshold. "I love you too." He tilted her chin up, his eyes serious. "I loved you in the ice, and I love you here, and I'll love you wherever we go next. That's very poetic for a special operations soldier. I contain multitudes." He grinned, then grew serious again. "But I mean it, Maya. This isn't just adrenaline or proximity. This is real." "I know." She kissed him again, softer. "It's real for me, too." They fell asleep, wrapped together, two warriors finding rest in the only shelter that mattered, each other's arms. The world outside their window continued its troubled turning. The ice continued its retreat. New conflicts waited on the horizon. But Maya Chen and Jack Morrison had found something that no amount of rare earth minerals could match. They'd found each other, and in doing so, they'd found a reason beyond duty to keep fighting for a world worth saving. In the morning, they'd return to their duties. They'd train and plan and prepare for whatever threats emerged next, but they'd do it together now, no longer hiding what they meant to each other, no longer pretending that what they'd built wasn't as strong as the ice they'd fought on, and as enduring as the mountains beneath it. And somewhere in that future, maybe after a few more years of service, maybe after they'd earned their quiet retirement, there would be a small ceremony, just friends and teammates, nothing fancy. But the vows they'd speak would be backed by the absolute certainty that only comes from facing death together and choosing life, choosing each other. For now, though, this was enough. This moment of peace, this shared warmth, this love hard-won in the coldest place on Earth and brought home to bloom in the safety they'd fought to preserve. The Arctic had been their crucible, but this ordinary, extraordinary life they were building together, this was their victory, and it was only the beginning.